Welcome to the Konnected podcast. I am your host, Kim, Christian, wife, and entrepreneur, a safe place where personal experiences and testimonies are shared. This podcast was placed in my heart by God to share my untold stories that have brought healing in several areas of my life where God has used that ugly for beauty. I'm here to bring awareness and light to hopefully help and encourage someone. There is purpose, and God is always with you. Okay, welcome back to episode 4. I didn't realize it was Memorial Day weekend, so here we are. Okay, so we will be talking about culture and like cultural differences, like upbringing, childhood, and things like that. So I actually have been talking about this topic for a little bit with clients. And it's crazy like that I've come to realize that we are all so similar. I'm going to put this over here. Let me put D&D. We're all very similar, and so the specific clients that I would talk to were Hispanic, Mexican background, and the things that I would say, it's like we would click and be like, oh my God, I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. Or yeah, or remember, or did you ever go through this? Or did you ever go through that? And it was like, oh my God, I know you. So we like bond over that. And these clients have ranged from like people that are girls that are younger than me and then, older than me. So that's something that I did want to talk about because I don't think that is really talked about a lot. And I kind of want to like touch on how that really does affect your adulthood. And I only, have recently come to that realization through my marriage. And so if you are Hispanic or Mexican or in any of that culture, and you may relate with this, and you may, resonate and just feel like you're not alone. Okay. Or if you're not, then, here's some of like our side. Obviously we don't know, the other cultures because this is, what we grew up living like. But the Hispanic Mexican culture is very, first of all, they're very family oriented, which is great, right? Okay. Well, there's some cons to that in our culture. And let's see, all of them come from big families, very big families. And let's see, so that let's talk about those two first. So the big family oriented, because they kind of tie in together. So family oriented and big families, right? Well, growing up, it was always a very loud house because there was just all the cousins, all the sisters, brothers, all the aunts, all the uncles. Like birthday parties were a big thing. Christmas was a big thing. Thanksgiving was a big thing. And it was like all this family. And it was just always so loud. So growing up, like now, I live with my husband and we have 4 dogs and 3 cats. And like sometimes the dogs, dogs just whine or like they're like kids, they make noises. And he'll be like, can you tell them to like stop? And I'm like, what? I tune it out because I'm used to that. So that's like one thing that like I can easily tune things out. And like, I mean, obviously, like if you were in a quinceañera or you were at a birthday party, but really all the adults are there to get drunk. And then there's like the kids playing or whatever. There was always one kid over here, sleeping on the couch or sleeping on a chair or whatever, just like no big deal. All this noise. And that's just how we grew up. So I'm very used to like all the noise. Like I know how to tune it out and I know how to like block it. So that, and then like with that being big family oriented, that I've seen comes a problem of, well, blood is thicker than water type of saying. True, but that doesn't give you the right to disrespect and treat someone unfairly just because they're family and know that they're going to forgive you because you're family. That's the hard hitting thing. And recently, I'm the type of person, I think I've mentioned, I grew up very like, I couldn't really speak my mind. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't say much because, again, the Hispanic culture is, which we'll touch on that. But that's kind of how I grew up. And now, like just recently, I've really had to learn how to grow a little bit of a spine. And that sounds awful to say, but that's just the harsh reality. Like, I wasn't that person that was super confrontational or like say it how it is type of thing. Like, I'm scared to hurt your feelings and I just want everyone to be happy. I want to be friends with everybody. And I wouldn't say anything to my parents. So a lot of our conversations were very superficial because I didn't want to offend them or hurt them, because when I know I've tried it before where I would say, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that. They would get mad at me, or they would, just make me feel bad about myself. Gosh, I like cannot quench my thirst. Sorry. Some little ASMR there for you. So just recently I really had to work through that, and I've learned to set boundaries, and I really had to do a lot of deep dive in myself and like reflect on why I act certain ways. And it's taken me a minute, okay? And the one that really brought me to realize that that was an issue is my husband, because I would act these ways with him, which is not fair to him. And to me, while I was doing it, I was on the defensive side. So I'm just defending my feelings and defending my side. So there's nothing wrong with it because I'm defending my side. And I have the right to do this and I have the right to do that. But the root of the issue, I didn't understand while I was doing these things. That, first of all, that it was an issue, and I didn't understand where it was coming from. So many times that I've like done X, Y, and Z with him because I couldn't like register like why I was doing these things. And, he's so gracious and like patient with me. And he really like is such a like amazing husband in that. I mean, he is in general, but just like with my emotions and like sifting through all my, I guess, baggage. And I finally like had to like be like, okay, why am I doing this? And it took me a long time, but a lot of the things came back to my childhood, and it came back to my parents and my upbringing. So let's go back to why I was super like unconfrontational. Didn't want to say anything. I'm too nice, and I just wanted everyone to be happy and bottle everything up. So I'm the oldest, naturally. And I feel like a lot of firstborns will relate. Naturally, we get the crappier end of the stick because, number one, that's our parents' first time being parents, which they're not to blame for. Like, no one has a handbook on how to be a parent. I know when that time comes, I'm gonna fail in things. Like, I know that. Like, I'm not gonna be perfect, and it'll be, you know, learn a lot of learning things with me and my husband. But so I get that. So firstborns, like, we just naturally deal with more and go through more, unfortunately. So as a firstborn, I did have it a little bit harder. And I mean, even my other siblings agree with that. So I had it a little bit like stricter, rougher, and with that, I would try like one thing about my parents, they are very, how do I say it? They were always there. Like we didn't miss a thing, okay? Emotionally, though, I am a very emotional person. And with the stuff that has happened to me, if you've watched episode 2 or heard episode 2, with that stuff came a lot of trauma. And I needed a lot of emotional, like, healing and reassurance. And I mean, just imagine, like, I'm just this little girl with trauma. Like, I had a really hard time with emotions and regulating my emotions because of all of that. So, in that area, my parents weren't the greatest. So, whenever I would try to speak up or say anything, I was shut down, or they would get mad at me for saying whatever. And so I learned my coping mechanism of bottling things up. So that was my defensiveness. So I would bottle everything up, and I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want anyone to make me feel stupid or make me feel hurt that I said my feelings. So I'd rather just keep them in. So that's what I did. And I developed that, and I got super good at it because that's all I would do. So that carried on to relationships, friendships, everything. And that's something like in my marriage, my husband he would literally ask me, women, like, I know you've been there. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. And you're like pissed off. And so later on, then you'd be like, well, actually, I was mad because of this. Or you don't say anything for weeks. And then one day you blow up and then say all the things that have bothered you in the last few months, which is not healthy. I know because I have been there and I have done that. And it was really hard to break. It still comes out and it's like a really working progress. But when I finally realized the root of it, I'm like, okay, I felt that way because of this. And I know that my husband doesn't make me feel what my parents made me feel when I would say these things to them about my emotions. So why am I treating him this way? That's not fair to him. I am safe with him that I am able to say my emotions and not him treat me this way, because it's not his fault that my parents made me feel this way in that area. So why am I acting like he's going to treat me that way when I know he's not, you know? So that's like one of the things. And another thing was because of all that emotional stuff and like the trauma, and like I just felt like I could never say anything and I would blow up and I would keep it in. And so because of that bottling in, I formed rage, which I did not realize I had rage until probably this year. I'm not going to lie. And I just lash out. And like looking back, I would lash out and I would blame it on like other things. But no, it was because I bottled everything up and I never had like, not closure, but like reassurance of my feelings, or clearing up of them on whatever it was. So I just held everything in. So when something would like inconvenience me in some way, I would just lash out and get upset and like my whole world's ending. So that carried on to my marriage. And I am not going to lie, which we'll talk about with my husband. It got bad. Like, I am not proud of it. And you'll hear that stuff on the in the next episode with my husband. But I'm not proud of it. Like, I would lash out really angrily and I just felt rage. Like something he would say or that I didn't like in an argument. Like the arguments, like I'm not saying this just to say this, like 95% of them was because of me. Plain and simple, because of me. Because I keep going and going and going, or I heard a word or a sentence that he would say, and I would take that and I would just rage. Like a switch would flip, like literally. And because I could be so nice and everything, but I can be so angry and full of rage that when I get there, it's really, really hard. I feel so bad for my husband. Like, I just literally, I started crying yesterday because I was like, oh, you have so much patience for me and I don't deserve it. And he's like, that's how God is with us. So, like, we need to be that way, especially in our marriage. And I'm like, I know, but I'm so sorry. I'm also very emotional these days, okay? If you know, you know. Um, but it was really hard for him to bring me down from that point of I flipped my switch. Pretty much good luck getting me down. After all of it, I felt so guilty and so convicted over it. So I always did apologize. Like, and another thing with the Hispanic culture, they don't know how to say sorry. They don't know how to apologize. As of recently, like there's been healing in my family, and my parents have been able to do that, which is all glory to God, because that has been prayers and prayers and prayers, because I know that there is nothing that I could do on my own. Like that was all going to be God and in God's timing, and it was. But we could talk about that another day. But Mexicans don't know how to say sorry. They don't. So it just, that kind of carried over. Like, even though I knew that, like, okay, they don't say sorry. I don't want to make someone else feel that way. So I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I know I messed up. I do that, but there's sometimes where it comes out because my parents were that way and I thought that was okay. Or not that I thought that it was okay, but it would carry on sometimes. And it was so hard for me to just say sorry because I hated that you made me feel this way and I was just defensive. So I'm not going to say sorry. So that was a thing that I had to learn, like, not to do. Even though I'm always conscious of, like, if I messed up, like, I'm going to say sorry because that's the right thing to do. Gosh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm burping. So excuse me. So that, a lot of Hispanic households, favor the men. And that's another thing that I realized very, like, off the bat. And they have a very I'm the man type of thing, like a machista, like machismo attitude. And I'm the man, you say what I say goes, and you're the woman. So you have to listen to me, which I get, being submissive. Like, as a wife, you submit to your husband. But this is a different level. Like, this is a whole other level. That is not the way that God intended it to be at all. And like, they're right, you're wrong. They're always right, and they're the man. So what they say goes, even though, type of thing. So that was very, like, dominant in the household, and even in just, like, other, like, my aunts, uncles. Like, I saw that, like, I recognized that right away. And growing up, like, I'm like, I will not marry a Mexican because of that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I offend anyone, okay? I don't mean to, but I'm not saying that all of them are like that. But that was my upbringing, and that's what I saw. So because I didn't want that mentality, I just, so that's a big thing. And, like, I have a sister and a brother, and then another little sister, which she's my cousin, but we call her sister. And my brother, like, I just felt because he's a man, he was a little bit more favored in some ways. So, I mean, we all went through stuff. Like, I'm not discounting like what he went through. Like, I feel bad for him. My dad, like, gosh, growing up, we had the worst whoopings. Like, we really did. And that's another thing. Like, dang, those are some, like, if you know, you know, like, that was intense. So I'm not discounting like what he went through, like at all. It's just in Mexican cultures, boys are a little bit more favored than the women. They're a little bit harder on the women and stricter. So that, and I just had this conversation like with my dad actually, which, you know, if one day that happens where I get to say it on a podcast, and that will happen, but I'm not going to go into details of it. Just know that there was healing. But one of the conversations that I told him was, I recognize that what I'm bringing to you and to like heal, or like what I need from you as your daughter, like I recognize that there is stuff that in your childhood and mom's childhood that needs healing too. And I get that. Like, and it's like a trickle, like it's like an effect, like a domino effect, you know, because whatever they went through in their childhood, you know, and that they didn't heal or really process and, you know, go like really, yeah, heal, can affect parenthood, can affect marriage, can affect how you raise kids or whatever, right? And so then me, my siblings saw that, and then how we grew up with that and developed these coping mechanisms or these habits or whatever that are not healthy. Then we grow up in our adulthood, and then we act X, Y, and Z with our partners or in relationships with people. Like, it's, and that's why I'm like very conscious, like, and I'm so grateful to my husband. Like, I seriously like pray to God. Like, I'm so grateful and thankful for my husband. Because if it wasn't for him, I would not be, like, he's literally healed the little girl in me. Honest and truly, he has. And I'm very like aware, and it's so important for me to heal these parts of me and grow in my mentality in these things and have a different perspective and understand like the deep root issues and understand all these things. So I know, like, and I take that on with my relationship with my husband in my marriage, relationships with friends and siblings and whoever. And when I'm a parent, I know, like, okay, this is what I went through. This is what happened with me. I'm not going to do that with this, which again, I'm not saying I'm going to be perfect. I'm probably going to struggle in other areas. Like, that's okay. But I know, like, okay, I'm not going to like do these things. And emotions are so big. Like, I want to raise an emotionally intelligent kid. Like, I wasn't. Okay. Like, I still, till this day, I find it hard to regulate my emotions because I didn't know how. Like, and that's why I seeked attention or, you know, reassurance from like people. Like, I, I had like issues. So I like, when me and my husband talk about like, oh, like I've always wanted a boy, right? So like when we start our family, I always want a boy, but because I just want, you know, to expand, you know, his last name and all this stuff. But my husband, like helping me heal with my stuff, I'm like, wow, now I want a girl because I know you'd be such a good girl dad first. Second, you would raise such an emotionally intelligent girl. It's just, I'm so excited to see that if it happens to be a girl. I know he will with a boy too, but I'm just saying because of my stuff, I'm like, wow, he's going to change everything and change the game and like all these generational like curses type thing. Like, no, it's going to stop, you know? And just as a couple together, like, I cannot, like, it's going to be amazing. So, yeah, that's like a lot of emotional issues, I feel like, in the Hispanic culture and Mexican culture, which I'm not saying just a Hispanic and Mexican culture. I'm just saying because this is obviously first, this is my upbringing. But I've been finding healing in it. And yeah, it's been a long time overdue for me to, you know, grow from that. But I'm here. And I'm going to continuously try to improve and grow because I don't want to feel rage. I don't want to feel like my emotions are going to be shut down with everyone. You know, like that's the chip on my shoulder that I had. And oh, people think I'm stupid. Oh, because I felt that way when I would voice my emotions or my opinions. Oh, people think this. And like, no. But with all of that, God has also been really teaching me patience and grace and compassion. I think I've always had the compassion part, but he's teaching me patience. I do not have. He's teaching me patience and learning to not be petty and have the last word with things, like with people who hurt me or what they say with like in family. I just Now I just say, okay, you're wrong with this. Like, I hope this, like, this is my boundary type of thing. If you want to meet me there and respect that one day, then I'm all ears. But I don't hate you. I love you and I forgive you. I would love to improve our relationship. That's the growth, that I've made. Because before I'd be like, one, I probably wouldn't say anything. And so we would have such a superficial relationship. Or two, I would get upset, yell at them, and then sweep it under the rug. And then it's just a cycle. And I just don't want these cycles. I want to break these cycles and break that. And that's recently what has been happening in my life. And how my childhood and upbringing in the culture of not being heard emotionally and shut down, and I'm the parent, I'm older, I'm right, you're not because you're the kid. I'm an adult now and it would still happen. So now we're in the upwards and healing and of relationships. So I am really happy and just I praise God for it because those conversations really did bring healing. So if you are in that position, just know, set your boundaries, pray and ask God, on how to deal with this. Cause that's what I did. Like, I'm like, I don't honestly, like, I don't know what else to do, God. Like, this is all you, like, it's going to be in your timing. You're in control. And I pray that, this relationship heals with my parents, and I know it's going to happen. And God doesn't fail. God hears your prayers, because I did. I was able to have those conversations without me like making it happen and forcing my way. It was all God, and I surrendered that. So if you're in the same similar situation, then just you're tired of these cycles and tired of not being acknowledged in the air in things, you have to speak up, like you do. And another thing too, it's like I don't want people, or I don't want my kids to think that it's okay for that to go on. You know what I mean? So, yeah, comment, like if you related in some way and resonated with any of it. The next episode is going to be with my husband on how all that stuff has affected our marriage and like fights and arguments that we've had. It's going to be pretty funny. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your patience with me. And God bless you. And thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Bye, guys.